All right, Paul, well, just run me through quickly, I guess, how you thought the year went. Obviously, coaching both the Geelong Falcons and Vic Country boys teams must have been a pretty busy one, juggling both of those commitments.
Yeah, it was busy, but it was also pretty joyful too, to tell you the truth, mate, after the last couple of years that we've had to be able to get a full season away. And obviously, to get no interruptions, with COVID, throughout the year. And we were just able to get some consistency in both programs, in the Falcons and then obviously in the Vic Country stuff as well. So no, I thought the year ran pretty smoothly. I thought, yeah, obviously it was a bit busy after doing girls at the start of the season and coming into the two boys programs after that. But I felt like we had a lot of success throughout the year in both programs, which was really pleasing.
And obviously, I guess you missed out on finals with the Falcons, but got to play off in a decider with Vic Country. So, that's pretty much the highest level of junior football you can get. How was that experience for you as a coach?
Yeah, it was fantastic, and it probably all started, way back when we first come together as a group in Vic Country in our first camp. We sort of built the mentality of a team environment, and we wanted to sort of generate that and create that amongst the group. And I thought they really held that really well throughout the carnivals and the games that we played, and it probably enabled them to play the football that they did and to get to that stage, or obviously in that game against Metro. And if we had been able to kick straight a bit earlier in the game, it might have been a different story. But I was still really pleased with their efforts and the way they went about it. Not only in the game they played against Metro, but the way they conducted themselves, all through the camps and through the games. And I just felt there was a real bond, not only just with the players, but with all the staff that were involved through that country program as well.
And obviously, running into the draft, we'll touch on a few of the players that you've coached across both teams. And it's probably only natural that we start with Jai Clark, obviously the captain for both teams as well, and MVP, probably best and fairest for the Falcons, I would assume. So, I mean, tell me a little bit about him. What's so good about him? Because obviously he's touted as a top 10 prospect, and yeah, he's one of the best going around at the moment.
Yeah, he's a terrific kid. I've had the privilege to be able to work with him for the last 2 years, which has been really, really good. He's a level-headed kid, loves his footy, and is just so professional even at this age already. I saw him come through in his 17s year last year, and just saw the attributes of the type of player that he was. Very good inside, contested ball, but he had this unique ability on the outside too to be able to take a mark in the air, be able to go forward, hit the scoreboard where he could. And I think his ability just to impact games with his two-way running is probably his biggest strength. Probably haven't seen too many like him that run both ways with their transition, and his willingness to get back and help his defence and then push forward in offence is real attribute to, I guess, where he's taken his game, over the last 2 years, and probably why he puts himself, high up in that draft end, coming in a couple of weeks.
And it seemed certainly, I think it was probably most obvious in the last game of the season, if any, with the Geelong Falcons against Western Jets. He really put the side on his back and had one of his best games of the year. I think it was most obvious then the comparison to Joel Selwood. And I don't know whether you see it the same way, but can you tell us firstly about that performance and I guess your thoughts on that and the comparison to Joel?
Yeah, we probably weren't playing our best footy at that stage, and we had a lot of, I guess, bottom ages in our group, which is exceptional for next year, and for those guys to be able to push their way in, and I guess to have someone like Clarkey play the way he did in that game, and to take the team, and put them on his back, and perform the way he did and lead the way he did in that game. It would have been really nice if we were able to get over and get a win. But I just thought that's the type of player and person that he is, and that's how he displayed himself the whole year across both programs, the Falcons, and Vic Country. And he's a very coachable person. He wants to get better. He listens, and yeah, he just wants other people around him to also, improve as well. It's not just about, Jai Clark, it's about the team aspect as well. And I think it's a pretty unique sort of a special trait to have that in someone at such a young age. And whoever gets hold of him, come draft night, will have a pretty handy player on their list.
You obviously had Ollie Northam as well get a national combine invite from the Falcons. So The big man's pretty competitive. What sort of stuff does he bring to the table?
Yeah, he's interesting. Oh, because obviously in his 17th year, we played him in the ruck, and we didn't have Toby Conway the whole year because of APS at Geelong College. And I thought after the 17s carnival last year, Ollie come in and he just kept growing and kept getting better as a ruck for us, and just super competitive in the air. And then he gets after it at ground level. He's like another on baller really once that ball hits the ground. We probably felt this year that we started him in the ruck, and we knew what he could do from a ruck perspective, but we probably had to also show his capabilities in other positions. Being a little bit more undersized than the natural ruckman. So we played him forward, and we played him forward a big country as well, and we also gave him a turn down back later in the year just to show clubs and recruiters that his ability to play different positions.
And in terms of that, obviously, as you mentioned, probably a bit undersized for a ruck. So, um, where do you see him playing his best football at the next level when you're pitching to clubs?
Yeah, I think it's probably been like that Luke Jackson type where I think he can play that sort of forward, ruck role. I think he's got that ability to go in to a ruck contest. He's got a really good leap on him as well. So even though he's a little bit undersized, he does get up there. But he gives you that difference with the follow up and what that looks like at ground level, becoming a different on baller, and to add that height to it as well. And you can't buy competitiveness, and he's got heaps of it in the way he goes about it. He probably just needs to focus in a little bit more on his forward craft and spend a little bit more time there, and keep improving on just his pattern stuff and just his marking stuff forward of the ball.
Yeah, and obviously the Geelong connection is really strong community-wise, and you've got the Cats there on the doorstep. So, two guys aligned to the Falcons, obviously Oscar Riccardi and Tico Hasty, state combine invitees, but they've got the fallback, I guess, of being tied to Geelong, the AFL team, as NGA and father-son prospects. So, I guess individually, what do they bring, and what can Cats fans expect from them?
Yeah, look, it was fantastic to hear that Cats were backing obviously those two, and we'll wait to see what happens on draft night. But just for them to be able to get an opportunity, at that level is terrific, and that's what our program and talent pathway is about, to see stories like that. And I think when you look at Ted First, he was our vice captain this year at the Falcons. As competitive or even more competitive than what Jai Clark is, on the field. And his contested stuff is second to none. His tackling ability to get after the opposition is just huge in the fact of what I've seen from a player this year. He probably just didn't have the consistency this year with injury to be able to put a string of games together. But when he was out there, the team was so much better off for having Ted out there. And he's got an ability to go forward too, Ted, and he provides that. I guess that dimension of the physicality, the pressure in that front half, but he also can take a mark and kick a goal as well, like was seen in the Vic Country games that he played for us. And he's one that just wants to keep improving, keep getting better, and putting Ted into an AFL environment will suit him to a T. He'll lap it up, and he'll soak everything he can, use the resources that are there. And he won't leave any stone unturned once he gets into that environment as well. And he's a terrific kid that's coachable. He's respectful as well. So, yeah, looking forward to see how he goes at the next level as well. And I think he, already proved that this year by playing that VFL game with the Cats, that he can sort of match at a VFL level already. With Oscar, we probably didn't know a hell of a lot about Oscar, prior to him coming into our pre-season last year. We sort of seen and heard of him in bits and pieces at local level, and knew obviously there's Peter Riccardi's son, but he just grew and grew. He come in, he really stood out with his ability to run, his 2K time trial, but his repeat speed with that as well. And we just thought that we were able to find someone here that could play a real strong outside game for us on the wing. So we trained him up, on that wing sort of, half-back area. We wanted to utilise his skills. He was probably one of our best kicks in our team with ball in hand, and we just encouraged him to take the game on. If he got caught, it didn't matter. Make sure if he had that opportunity again to go for it as well. And we played him predominantly on the wing. We pushed him to half back, and he had a super game up in Ballarat, playing across half back. as well, giving us some drive off there. And he can even go forward as well, like he did up in Darwin, and hit the scoreboard also. So he's got that flexibility in his game to be able to play multiple outside positions. And he was one too that he really just absorbed the program, this year at the Falcons, got everything out of it. And I think that's why his form, was so consistent throughout the year.
And in terms of your own philosophy, obviously coaching both Geelong and Vic Country, um, you've got two different squads essentially, so you have to play to two different sets of strengths. Did you sort of find that your game planning and maybe some of your coaching changed across the two teams? And if so, what were some of the differences there?
It's funny you say that, but it didn't really. It was more about I have a real strong philosophy, especially at the Falcons as well, is that I'm a real strengths-based coach. And, obviously we'll identify these kids that come into our program because of the strengths that they possess and they show when they're at their local clubs to come into our system. And we don't ever want to take that away from them. We want to sort of enhance that and try and develop that even more. And it's more so when you get into the big country stuff, you've just got a higher end and probably a bigger depth of talent that you're training and obviously coaching. And the same philosophy applied. We wanted to bring these kids in. We wanted to give them an opportunity. We wanted to sort of build a boundary of what our template looked like from a team aspect, but we wanted their abilities and their strengths to shine throughout. And I thought we were able to harness that really well with the coaches that we had. And we were able to bring their strengths, and it's probably a reflection of why we had such a successful carnival, in those 4 games.
And in terms of, I guess, the players that you had, you've got, the potential number one draft pick at your disposal there in Aaron Cadman, Ollie Hollands as part of the team, Mitch Sipkowski, Henry Huswaite. There's a slew of top talents. So in terms of the players who, I guess, impressed you most that you maybe hadn't had the exposure to from other regions, who are they?
Yep. Yeah, obviously Cadman, everyone's been talking about Cadders, but he's just a terrific player, and he's got that size about him. He was probably a bit more one out for us. We didn't have a lot of height in our front half, through the country region, and I thought, he was exceptional for us as a target forward, whether we played him deep, whether we played him high. But the thing that shone out for me was more so off field with him and his leadership ability with Clarkey to bring the team together, to collaborate the team and get them all on the same page. And, they're both very different leaders in what they do. Cadders is a bit more laid back than what Clarkey is, but they both responded to each other really well. And I think Cadders' game just kept growing as the season went on. He wasn't, I guess, overawed by coming into country and trying to play. He just kept playing the same way. He works really hard. He took everything on, whether it was playing deep, whether it was playing high. And yeah, I just think, obviously he's touted as being that number one. He's that for a reason, because he's got those superior qualities in his game that the clubs are looking for. And I think he's been able to, put a season together. It's been pretty special.
On the flip side, obviously, coached against a lot of top end talent as well. So were there any matchups, whether it be for country or the Falcons, that I guess gave you a headache in the coach's box? And, any sort of conundrums you had to overcome throughout the season?
Oh, it's always the ones. It's even when you look at Cadman, we had to look at obviously what that looked like. Then when you come up against if you're playing against the Stingrays as well, you've got Binns on a wing who runs really hard, and he showed that in his carnival, his transition stuff to get right back into defense and then get forward. But his ability to be able to win ball as well, Binsy, was pretty exceptional also. And I think the flexibility that he provides by being able to go forward and hit the scoreboard also makes him a hard player, to play on. Sibber through the middle is just, he gets it done inside through contested ball, winning clearances, but he can also get ball and hurt you on the outside as well with his transition stuff. Then you got Huswaite, in there as well. That's a multi-positional player. He can play, he can play across half back. He can play, through the midfield. I think the point of difference for Huss is that he's got that ability to, I guess, being the size that he is, he's almost like a Paddy Cripps type, that he's so hard to tackle, so hard to bring down, inside, because he's able to get his arms free and get it to the outside, to the runners as well. So when you're talking about, those three that were in the country, through the midfield, and you come up against them against the Stingrays. It's a pretty influential midfield group that you've got there. Had the pleasure of obviously working a bit closer to Noah Long and also Ollie Hollands, because they were part of the grammar program down here, and they occasionally come down and train with us at Falcons as well. And super impressed by Ollie Hollands, who is in a similar mold to Clarkey in the way that he's able to transition like the two-way running that he does, and the work rate that he has to cover the ground, to get to contests, to win his own ball. But then again, we played him half back, we played him half forward, and we played him through the midfield, through the carnival as well. So I think that opens up a lot of eyes for AFL recruiters too when they're trying to put their first 20 or 30 games together, knowing that these guys can play a half forward role or a half back role before they might become dominant midfielders or spend most of their time in there. And Noah Long was another one that was probably injury interrupted a little bit at the start of the year and had his shoulder and all that, but he started to find his form too as a crafty half forward, getting up the ground, getting back. And then just the way he's able to use the ball. But I think him as a person as well, he's just so respectful. When he came into the country hub, he was more concerned about the welfare of other people and how they were fitting into the hub and what that looked like as well. And that showed, I guess, to me, the type of person that he was and the personality that he was within that hub as well. So, yeah, as a plethora, and you go through, Gippsland Power as well, and you've got Constanti, who's a small forward that loves to put pressure on, can hit the scoreboard. There's not too many guys that play forward these days that love the defensive aspect as much as they love the offensive, but he's one that's just got a unique balance in that as well, and he was vital to to what we did. I wish I'd have seen probably more of Bailey Humphrey. It's just unfortunate that he was injured, but such a powerful athlete that obviously for us in that last game against Metro really set it up for us in that first quarter and could have really, put him to the sword, early, but would have been great to have him, fully fit and then pushing him through the midfield with the other guys that I mentioned before. And, guys like Cooper Vickery down back who were just super, super consistent the whole time through the carnival. Just, you give them a job or you give them a player to play on, whether it's a medium or small. And it's not just a lockdown, obviously, what we're asking from Coop, but he provided offense for us. He was able to provide that good balance. He was able to set up his, defense from back there as well. So, yeah, it was one of those unique sort of teams that we had a lot of broader talent across the whole team, and I think that the talent came together really well and blended really well, through that carnival, and I think that's why they probably got the results that they did, and it was just unfortunate we weren't able to tip Metro in that last game.
Yeah, absolutely, and it's always good. I think every year the countryside is one that galvanizes really quickly. There's a good sense of camaraderie among all the regions. So I guess one, did you feel that? And two, what's the sort of country style of play that you try to embody and some of the, I guess, the core sort of standards you try to build around the squad?
Yeah, we probably had a squad that was, I guess, from our perspective, we knew that we had a really strong inside mix, but we wanted to be able to complement that with our outside. And when you look at the types that we had with Clark, Huswaite, Zabowski, Hollands, all those guys that could go through there, we just wanted to make sure that even though we're winning that ball on the inside, how do we become really effective on the outside as well? And when you've got Bins, we had Caleb Mitchell, we had, John Dishubak, on the wings. And then we really wanted to put some half forwards in place that were quite crafty and, Noah Long, Bergiel, these type of guys. And we just wanted to make sure that the ball was free flowing, and we wanted to make the ground big, where we could. We wanted to shift the ball in opposition where we could, not just play down the line, because we're probably a little bit smaller than what other teams were. So we knew that we had to sort of, I guess, keep the ball off the opposition, where we could and be smart with that. And we had a lot of, good kickers in our team as well. And you look at Harvey Gallagher coming in that last game off half back for us as well. I think that helped us, with Metro, that we knew if we gave the ball back to them, that they were very dynamic in going forward. So our ploy was to make them defend a little bit more and make the ground big and make them work a bit more in defence. And I thought we did that pretty well, except for just maybe missing a few shots in front of goal.
And obviously you've had good experience coaching against someone like Jason Davenport, who has the metro side of things in Oakley. So, who's one of the toughest or the toughest coach you've had to sort of come up against? Like, who gave your system the biggest trouble, you think?
Yeah, probably. Even when you look at like probably Sandy that we played out at RSEA Park early in the year, I thought that if we didn't win the ball against them or we didn't control the ball, around the contest against them, that they were very good with their hands, and we found that early on we got done in and around the contest a fair bit. We weren't getting first hands on it with Ashcroft and these type of guys through that. They were very clean. And then we sort of got our game together in the second half. The other ones were, obviously we felt, Gippsland were really strong, throughout the year as well. They were sort of a bit similar to us in the contest and what that looked like. And we loved that sort of, I guess, mentality of going in against them and, trying to stand up against, a really good contested team, because we pride ourselves on being that as well. And, so that was good coaching against obviously Rhett, against Gippsland, because two similar sides inside and who could get each other on the outside. And then you come up against, other teams that can be very free flowing. And you look at Bendigo, who probably didn't start the year that well, but geez, when they got the ball to the outside, they could really get it going really quickly. And they probably, early in the year when we drew against them, they got us early in the fact that we just couldn't stop their ball on the outside. And the turnover stuff, we couldn't defend really well. But obviously we got a bit lucky in that last quarter and put a few goals on and turned our game around. But they also showed, and I think they showed, as they come into wild card and finals, the type of game that they could play also.
In terms of, I guess, looking towards next year as well, obviously you're going to have the coaching role split into two with the boys and girls. So,
Yep.
with regards to your role, how do you think that sort of frees you up to, I guess, help out that one squad that you've got to look after in a coaching aspect? What more can you offer to them now?
Yeah, so I think the good thing will be is that it probably felt a bit like last year, that when we had the two programs running, especially through pre-season, you're sort of day on boys, day on girls, day on boys, day on girls. Whereas now it's probably more so I can spend a bit more time just knowing that the boys focus. But when I do have those nights off as well, can I step back and help, mentor and give some advice to Mel, on what sort of I had learned over the previous couple of years, in coaching the girls as well. I'll probably be able to lean on my coaches a little bit more, be able to delegate, have that a bit more time to establish, even closer relationships to a lot of the list as well. So there's just little things that change the dynamics, have a bit more oversight of the 16s programs that are coming through, because you've got a bit more time, on your hands, working with our development coaches more on their pathway and what that looks like. So that sort of time, when you've got those extra days and extra hours, probably go back into, more so the staff and the relationship type stuff that you do, that you probably didn't get a lot of time to do, when you had both programs running each week.
And what's on the agenda for you at the moment? Obviously, all the boys waiting to get drafted sort of have that front of mind in their exams and whatnot if they're still at school. So how, I guess, are you helping them through that? Are you still doing meetings with recruiters? And I guess, what are you up to at the moment?
Yeah, still doing that. So still meeting with clubs around, potential, draftees and what that looks like. Still talking to the boys, but letting them sort of be a little bit while their exams, are going on. Helping some of the guys, on the transition stuff, if they are transitioning out of our program, next year, what does that look like for their football and their own personal life? And does that mean, back to country local footy? Does that mean, VFL opportunities, and the possibility if they do get, rookied or on an AFL list? So working with that as well. Just been putting our list together, obviously, and putting our invites out for our pre-season, this year. And then again, just getting our staff coordinated and putting things in place and what we've learned over, this year and the previous year, how we can get better again. What does that look like? And getting a lot of feedback from our coaches and staff on what they've seen within our program and, what they think can help benefit our program or what we can introduce or those sort of things as well. So it's sort of been really nice to have a bit of time where to take a breath, but be also, one eye on what 2023 looks like.
Awesome. Well, look, I know the Falcons are obviously a notoriously prolific talent region, so we hope as many of your boys get drafted as possible, and obviously with the country kids as well. So, yeah, appreciate your time, Paul. Thank you very much, and all the best.
No worries. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you.